Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a short little knife video to share with you guys. This is going to be kind of a review, kind of not. It'll make sense here in a second. This is the CJRB Feldspar button lock in a very beautiful, this is a Damascus. As far as I understand, this is a 9CR, 10CR combination Damascus, but it's not oily. This is actually how the blade looks. I noticed, and I'm sure you guys will too, that the pattern is substantially more crisp than what we normally see when it comes to Damascus at this territory. This is not a hyper expensive knife. As of the time of this recording, you guys are actually watching it quite a ways in the future, but as of the time of this recording, this is only available on CJRB or Artisan Cutler's website, and it comes in at about $90, which isn't bad. The as far as like other knives in this general caliber go, the handle scales are made of steel. The implication here is that we will see, and I know White Mountain Knives has their own weird button lock exclusive to this, but the implication here is that there's going to be more Feldspar button lock variants. I don't know that for sure, but I believe that to be the case. Once these hit regular retailers, the price of this guy might actually be a little bit less, and the price of, if there are going to be different variations of this knife in, say, AR RPM 9, which is what I would expect them to use, it might be even less than that. So I'm going to talk about this today, but this is kind of open until they decide exactly what it is they're going to do, which I don't know yet. They didn't provide additional information on what their plan is with this thing, but this exists and you can actually get it, and the price isn't bad at $90 versus general competition. So we have reviewed the Feldspar in many different forms. These scales are flat and they're made of steel. The original budget version of this had contoured scales, and at one point was my favorite budget knife ever. Obviously, a lot has happened since the Feldspar was king on this channel, but this is a really nice refresh of this knife for sure. Thanks so much to CJRB/Artisan Cutlery for sending this in for review. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me, and please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. I have heard, and obviously the performance is not going to be exactly the same, but your premium, your ultra premium Damascus, a lot of people will say, like, if you really want to get into high-end stuff, you look at Damasteel. That's a proprietary blend through the Damasteel company that's made from two powder-formed compositions, RWL34 and PMC27. It used to be that you really had to go through Damasteel to get a really crisp pattern and to get that premium performance. Now, you'll hear some people say that the performance between this stuff and Damasteel is indistinguishable. And I think if you just use these knives like, as box openers, yeah, probably not. But as far as, the composition yield, they are different, definitely. But this stuff is very good. The testing that I've seen from this, if it is what I think it is, the 9CR, 10CR combination, is actually really great. So the fact that we actually get a beautiful pattern on this, because, listen, I know, people who don't know better, or they just haven't handled some stuff that looks better, they get anything in Damascus and they're like, wow, layers. That's amazing. To me, after seeing stuff like this, the inexpensive stuff that you can find on Amazon that's made out of like probably tin foil and soup cans, it just looks like garbage. This looks beautiful. This is absolutely stunning. And it's really cool that we can get this look in 2023 and have it actually perform well at this price, right? $90, considering the build quality. Really, I don't think is all that bad. Now, if you don't care about the pattern or the aesthetic of this, usually CJRB and pretty much any company makes a less expensive version that just has a full-on utilitarian composition with no pattern on it for less money, right? And oftentimes it's something like AR RPM 9, which is essentially a powder-formed 9CR A10 MOV, or 14C28N, which arguably are better in terms of performance. It just depends on who you're talking to and what they're using it for. But I think this is pretty impressive. You can think whatever you want. We'll go ahead and measure it. Overall length, I believe this is exactly the same as the original Feldspar. It's about 8 inches. Blade length is just shy. Is this actually... The overall length is, it's like 7.85. It's not quite 8. Blade length is about 3.35. Cutting edge is 3 inches. Just a couple of size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and the Ontario Rat Model 2. How about up against the Pyrite? I think that's probably a good one, the CJRB Pyrite. How about up against the Civivi Elementum? The Demco AD 20.5, and how about the Spyderco Para 3? Alrighty. How's the action? That's really important. This is actually a really nice button lock. There's actually, if you can hear it, there's a little bit of a ting, right? I kind of like that. I don't know if it's on purpose or not, or if it's just this one, or they're all going to be like that, but there is a little bit of that. Very easy to manipulate. The Feldspar has really nice, basically perfect thumb studs. Disengagement of that button has incredibly minimal stick, but it is crisp and has low travel. I don't like a button that I have to crunch into position. Like it's just a long press, right? I want it to disengage. I want there to be plenty of contact for that plunge lock so it is engaging the tang of the blade and locking out securely, but I don't have to really push it, right? I don't want to have to take a journey into a mine shaft in order to disengage the lock on the knife. What's acting as the detent, which is also the plunge lock, is fine. There's no play, and it's got plenty of pull or retraction, right? Or retention, I guess. Deploying the knife is incredibly easy, and pushing that button, the blade absolutely swings, right? Really great, really nice. I would have just died had they done contoured steel scales, right? Or aluminum. That would be great. And, you know, by the way, this is another button lock. People always get on me. They're like, every button lock, if you push it down hard enough, it's going to get stuck. I've called this plunge drag. I've invented a new thing to complain about. Plunge drag on button lock knives. Sometimes you push the button down super hard, right? Which is admittedly, you're not normally going to be doing that. But if you push it down as hard as you possibly can, sometimes it causes the blade to drag, or the actual part of the cylinder is actually dragging on the blade and keeping it from dropping. This does not occur with this knife at all. I can push that thing down as hard as I want. It's not going to stop the blade from falling into the closed position. Some knives have it and some don't. It seems to be, maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe it is all of the aluminum ones that I've handled, and the steel framed ones don't flex enough to create that drag. I honestly don't know. This is an example of one that does not have it. The vast majority of people, even on knives that have this plunge drag when you push the button down as hard as you possibly can, admittedly, most of you will never notice it. But as a knife reviewer who has reviewed God knows how many knives, right? You just naturally become more picky. I don't care who you are. If you sit here and do what I do and handle as many knives as I have, and you mess with this stuff, you start to come up with these little tiny things that bother you, right? Anybody. I'm not special, you're not special. Anybody would come to these same conclusions. You find little things that bother you, right? So you are special in your own way, right? That's right. If you've been told that you're special, you just keep on believing that, right? Don't let Metal Complex stop you. But, yeah, this doesn't have that plunge drag. I think that's worth pointing out, right? It's nice. I appreciate that. Now that I'm aware that it can occur on lots of different button locks from lots of different brands, right? Anyways, we have, believe it or not, the carry profile. Let's do that real quick because these are different than the standard ones. This is actually pretty darn thin, way thinner than the Spyderco Para 3 or the PM2. Which is what I'm comparing with. Lengthwise also really nice and easy to carry. Only a little bit longer. Well, I say a little bit. It's actually a decent amount longer than the Spyderco Para 3. Nowhere near as tall though. Weight. The weight on this guy is probably somewhere around 4 ounces, maybe 4 1/4 because of the steel. Yeah, there you go. 4.09, right? Some people are going to, oh no, my life's over. 4-ounce object with a, 3.35 inch blades. Really not that big of a deal in terms of ratios. It is definitely a little bit butt heavy. You can see here it's because we're looking at so much steel, even though it's been milled out for weight reduction, if you can see in there, right? So just be aware of that. I think if they're going to do a button lock for you, obviously you need to offer this. This is kind of like the pyrite. We need to do like steel liners with G10 or micarta scales, which would dramatically lighten the load here. You could do it in aluminum too, but again, is it the aluminum that's causing everything to flex when you push that button down? I mean, I don't know. Like if I think about that in my head, it doesn't really make sense. It's just a weird coincidence. So I don't know. I'm a little apprehensive about the aluminum thing, but you could lighten that up. And then again, you could just buy this and be like, I don't really care, right? It depends on how much the weight and balance of these things bother you. Let's do a hardware check. I'll get out my tools. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel, or the pinned comment. We have, and I honestly can't remember, I feel like the original Feldspar did not have, it's got a T8 pivot and also T8 body screws. I feel like the original Feldspar had T6 everywhere, but maybe I'm wrong about that. This has, thankfully, CJRB is smart enough to know that left-handed people can easily enjoy this knife despite it being a right-handed button lock. It's very easy to manipulate with the left hand. It's actually, in my opinion, a little easier to manipulate with the left-hand button locks in general because it just feels more natural to manipulate it with your index finger. So if you are left-handed and you're like, oh no, another right-handed button lock, no. You'll enjoy these more, right? This is one of the rare situations where I think you're actually gonna have a better experience, and you can mount this symmetrical clip for left-handed carry. So that's really great. This should be very easy to take apart. It's a simple pillar construction knife, T8 hardware almost everywhere, and it's very minimal. So yeah, you should be good to go there. I'll measure blade stock thickness real quick. I think that it's still pretty darn thin. In fact, it might actually be thinner than the original. It's just been so long I can't remember. Yeah, it's really thin. Wow. 102 thousandths. Plenty thin. All right. This is still the Feldspar. And if you want more details on this, you can go back and watch my original review. The ergonomics are really good. I think they would feel better if the scales were contoured. But in this case, since they're all steel, that would add material, right? So maybe that's why. Nice choke up position. Really nice. Still incredibly ergonomic. The fact that it's no longer a liner lock alleviates, like mine didn't have any issues, but a lot of people had issues with like lock stick, geometry issues where the blade would disengage. I feel like CJRB is doing better with that. I don't feel like they have that issue with some of the newer stuff, but this was years ago. There were issues with that. This, I can actually demonstrate. When people get on me, they say, hey now, I'm a professional spine whack tester, and you are not taking safety seriously, mister. You never wear gloves. Shut your stupid face. You don't know anything about safety, okay? If you're not doing it like this, you're not doing it correct. Their button locks are fine, right? You gotta swing it. You gotta hook it up to a vise, and you gotta swing it. You gotta swing a baseball at it with the gauntlets. Otherwise, not impressed. No, I'm not gonna do that. But it's good enough for a normal, sane human being who's not a total nut job. It's good enough there. And honestly, the disengagement is still just fine. Do we have any increased lock? No, actually not at all. Everything is exactly the same. So yeah, their button locks, as far as I'm concerned, are totally solid. I don't have an issue with geometry or anything like that, which is really, really great. Let's see, what else do I want to talk about here? The blade geometry is still very good, very, very slicey. And again, you're going to get that performance while, enjoying the beautiful etch. This is an etch, right? So over time, you may get, the lighter areas may darken, the finish may dull a little bit. I mean, that's just, we live in a finite universe. So no matter what, that's why I always prefer like a stonewashed finish on like my working knives. I prefer, materials that will wear aesthetically the least because it just continues to look the same. But that's a preference. Obviously, there are downsides to that, especially when you're looking at like a metal handle like titanium or steel. So all of this, even this coated, handle, all this is going to wear over time. But again, fortunately, it's just not that expensive of a thing for how pretty it looks. CJRB, on one side, we still have codes and things, which kind of is a bummer. They really need those codes on there. What is, I think it just says Damascus. Yeah. Really cool pattern. I like that. The overall fit and finish of this is really great. The fit and finish on CJRB knives in general is better than it's ever been. There's nothing that looks or feels out of place here. Very simple though. Not a lot of complexity. It would have been really cool to see like a milling pattern or something in the steel, but there's not. That's not that big of a deal. Still a lanyard hole, right? The clip is not nested into the steel, but it doesn't need to be. The main deal here is that there's a position for you to mount it for left-handed carry, and that's nice. The screws themselves are recessed into the clip at least. The clip is close to perfect, but not perfect in my book. I like it to be like this, right? Gradual swoop. This is a boop and then a swoop, right? It's sudden, but that's okay. It's still great. This is a minus of a clip, right? It's definitely better than the Civivi, dragon face, like horse bill Loch Ness monster clip. In and out of the pocket, very easy, very smooth, right? There's not a whole lot locking you in other than just the ergonomic shape of it, especially when you're choked up. You're a little more locked in there, but there's no texturing or anything like that. I do like that they gave you a little scallop here just to kind of get in a little bit easier. It's not that, it's kind of positioned a little high. But you can, depending on how you approach it, it might make it easier for some people. Stop pin located in its traditional spot with a tiny bit of shouldering. Still, believe it or not, even after that, super gauntlet test, no blade play up, down, left to right, very minimal stick, like almost nothing. No pivot lash, very smooth in here, and about what you'd expect for the plunge lock acting as the detent, right, when it closes. And perfect centering. Sorry, that was my stomach growling. I'm hungry. Yeah, perfect centering. $90 even off their website isn't terrible. I would imagine, as is usually the case, not always the case, but a lot of times you see a lower price tag once it gets to major retailers. That might be the case, it might not be. I'm not super offended at $90. It would be really cool if they could get this at like 75 or less, but I don't really expect that. If they did a version of this with just G10 and steel liners, and it's in AR RPM 9, I would expect it to follow suit with knives like the Pyrite and still be, right in that $50 to $60 territory, which would be excellent. But this is really cool. I think I would review a different version of this. I would do a separate review because it would almost be a different knife. But as this sits, this is really, really intriguing. And if you like this look, this is some of the most impressive budget Damascus, right? I'm talking real Damascus, not the freaking tinfoil and Play-Doh nonsense that you can find on Amazon for $25. You should not be buying that stuff. This is, very, very, well-performing Damascus that in this case has a beautiful pattern. I don't think too many people are going to argue that this is just a really nice-looking pattern. This is really cool. CJRB has just been impressing me more and more and more lately. We started off on this channel 5 years ago with kind of being a little, but man, lots of great stuff. This is really cool. I'm glad that they sent this in for me to take a look at. This will be a knife that I eventually give away during a live stream. So be paying attention for that. But I do appreciate them letting me take a look. I will link CJRB knives in general down in the description so you guys can check them out. Thanks again for watching. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.